And during King Salman's 4-day visit, the world's two largest oil exporters will discuss Syria and Iran, as well as sign commercial deals. Joining me now, our international affairs commentator, Douglas Herbert. Douglas, this is the first time that a Saudi king is making an official visit to Russia. Why is it happening now?
Yeah, well, all the geopolitical cards are being sort of reshuffled, to use that big geopolitical word. These are two countries, as you said, who have been really extreme rivals, and they've clashed repeatedly over the past decades. They only really established formal relations after the collapse of the Soviet Union. What you're seeing right now is a lot of upending of past assumptions. You have, obviously, a lot of Syrian war politics thrown into there, Moscow's rising influence in the Mideast, which Saudi Arabia has been watching, and sort of this feeling that Saudi Arabia has been on the losing side, at least where the Syrian war is concerned. It has backed the wrong side if you're going to say that, Russia has backed Bashar Assad. And so Saudi Arabia now sees perhaps an opening to try to geopolitically get in there, try to perhaps get in Moscow's favor so that Moscow could perhaps use its influence in whatever comes next in Syria, especially with respect to Iran, Saudi Arabia's arch nemesis, arch rival, if you will, to make sure that Iran and its proxies don't gain too much influence in Syria. So there's a lot of that, trying to use Moscow's rising influence in the Syrian war to try to strategically get in there. But obviously, oil is a giant factor here. We know that in the past, these two powers have been sort of rivals and clashes in competition for oil market share. But recently as last December, actually, they did actually strike a deal, an accord, to try to cut output, to bring prices up. You remember prices had collapsed in mid-2014. There's now a real question: will Moscow remain committed to that pact to keep the production outputs in place to ensure that the price remains high and stable? So there's going to be a full court press, if you will, by the Saudi king on Russia to try to remain committed to that pact with the rest of the OPEC cartel, which Russia is not a member of, to keep the oil prices high. And finally, there's going to be some arms deals. We're having at this hour the news that some deals are being signed. We don't have the details. There's been talk of maybe Russian ballistic missiles, maybe air defense systems. We know that the Saudis could use a lot of the Russian know-how in terms of training, and you also have Saudi ambitions to perhaps build a civil nuclear complex so that they could become the second sort of power in the Middle East after Iran, to have some sort of infrastructure like that.
So what does Saudi Arabia's longtime ally, the US, make of this visit?
First of all, it'd be too simplistic to say that just because there's a lot of the U.S.'s global leadership has come under question, there's a lot of uncertainty in the U.S. foreign policy. It's not as if Saudis are right now going to turn heel on the U.S. and all of a sudden shift over to Russia, drop the U.S., leave them in the lurch, and go over to Putin's side. It's not that simple. This is a rapprochement with Russia. It doesn't mean they're going to abandon a U.S. ally, which has been one for really more or less for more than 70 years. Washington clearly is watching with a bit of trepidation, at least certain circles of Washington. You have the world's two largest oil producers basically getting together. One regime many consider very authoritarian, Russia under Vladimir Putin. Another that others consider very oppressive under King Salman. Yes, despite openings in Saudi Arabia, which we've widely reported, allowing women to drive and trying to open up the kingdom to greater freedoms and diversifying its economy away from oil, it's still an oppressive regime. So when you have these two powers getting together, sure, it's going to raise eyebrows. What are they going to do? How far are they going to go? But I could also probably bet you that from Moscow's perspective, too, as estranged or as soured as its relationship and tense has become with the United States, with Donald Trump in the White House, it's not ready to just abandon the U.S. either. They know that they have to work at that relationship. So geopolitics, big word, but it's never that simple. It's never that black and white. In this case, I suspect, yes, rapprochement, Saudi Arabia and Russia. No, all bets are not off in the Saudi-U.S. relationship or in the Russia-U.S. relationship. They're still going to work at it.